All right, let's see who all we got. Trying to get that Facebook Live going, so it looks like it's populating.
All right, hey guys. Y'all hear me?
You know, you.
Hello?
Sister Dorothy, thanks for sending over those photos for us.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Hi, Miss Dot.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We got a good crowd, and this will be one of those nights, Coach, where we have more information than we have time, because we want to welcome everybody to Talk Tuesday, and as advertised, tonight is going to be one of those historical nights where we just take a journey back through the life a little bit of White Oak Spring, and also of Barrow County. You know, we often talk about, and pastors preaching about our roots, our legacy, you know, Black history. We often talk about it, but sometimes I think we forget, Reverend Barry, that local history is also Black history, right?
Amen.
And so we have so many people in our community that have played such a vital role to the advancement of our community and also to our church. And so tonight we won't touch on all of them because we don't have enough time to hit them all. But there's some folks that we're going to talk a little bit about, and we're going to share some photos and just have fun, just reminiscing for a few minutes about our past. Is that okay with everybody?
Amen.
That's
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
All right. So, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to share a screen, and we are going to try to make this work. But give me a second to get to the PowerPoint. Save. Slideshow from the beginning. All right, let's see. Let's see. Okay. All right, so can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, let's rock and roll. Hey, Simone, how are you?
Good.
Good, good. So let's talk a little bit about Black history, Barrow County history. So some of the information that we've got, and first of all, we need your input because a lot of the stuff that I've compiled, I'm not quite 100% sure of all the connections. And so Sister Dorothy, Deacon Barry, Thrita, some of you all that have been around, Sister Martha, Brother Deacon Henry Slayton, y'all speak up. This is as Coach Barry would say, this is not a monologue, this is a dialogue. So y'all help us kind of identify some people of importance. But we use
Kenny,
hey.
Kenny, we're getting a lot of feedback from
I think I know what it is. I'll
somebody.
get
Okay, somebody said they think they know who it is. Did that get better, Sister Dorothy? Not really?
I just turned it down.
Hey, Kara. Let's see.
Okay.
All right. Sister Dorothy, is it still doing it?
A little bit.
It's better, but
Let's get everybody to go to mute for a moment, please. Okay, how about that, Sister Dorothy?
I'm still hearing.
Still doing it? All right. Let me try to change earbuds in case it's me, okay? Bear with me 1 second. Sister Dorothy, did that do any better? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
No, we still can hear whatever that little chirp chirp is.
Okay, that may be one of our participants. And let's see, it got everybody, some people muted. Let me try to mute a couple folks just in case. All right, did that get any better? Threeta's nodding her head. That got better, Threeta? All right,
I
everybody,
hear it now. Go
everybody
ahead.
okay?
Yeah, it's got better.
All right, so here we go, but unmute yourself when you want to talk, okay? So in the book of Beetling to Barrow County, there's a section that talks about churches, and in particular, there's a section that talks about White Oak Spring Baptist Church. And here's a little bit about the history of our church. I want to get somebody, if you don't mind, this is important enough that we need to take the time to read it. So somebody volunteer to read this for us, please.
If I could see it, I would.
White Oak Springs Baptist Church had its beginning in a bush harbor in Jackson County under the leadership of Reverend Mr. Burrow Sanders. About 2 years later, in 1875, Hartwell Jackson provided a box-shaped house to be used by the church worshipers. The Reverend Adam Bell was minister with the first digging when the first digging was chosen. Spencer White, Green Moon, and James Jordan helped with the duties necessary to do the mission of the church at that time. The new White Oaks Baptist was given because the church building was located near an oak tree which stood near a cool spring of water. The church denomination was of the Baptist faith founded in the missionary doctrine. The Sunday school department and the missionary society were organized during the tenure of the Reverend Green Hundred, who was the church pastor for 21 years. Sister Etta Anderson was the first president of the missionary society.
Well, thank you, Sister Woody, for reading that. And so the first things I want to point out to you is you see clearly where our name comes from, don't you?
Yes.
Mhm.
It doesn't say White Oaks with an S.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't say White's Oak. I've heard people say White's Oak, right?
Mm-mm.
It is White Oak Baptist Church, and it's because of a one white oak tree located near how many springs? A cool spring.
Right.
So it's important that we remember that. So the next time you hear someone talking about our church and they're not pronouncing it correctly, you professionally and politely explain to them what the name of our church is. Amen.
Without an S on spring.
There you go. How many springs did it say? Near a what? A cool what?
Cool
Spring.
spring.
Cool spring of water.
Uh-huh.
And so you'll notice in our new emblem that we branded to, we've maintained our history and our heritage because it is a oak leaf, right?
That's right.
From an oak tree. Amen. Good stuff. All right, let's see if we can move on here. So some more of the history here talks about how the church was moved to Jug Tavern, which originally it was Jackson County. It got moved to Jug Tavern, and then it was relocated over to the corner of Capitol Avenue and King Street. Who knows a little bit about that location? Did anybody knows anything about that location?
Can I stop for one correction?
You certainly can.
On the previous page where they had Green Hunter, that's a misspelling. His name was Green Hunter.
Amen.
And his name is very important because he comes up in association as being a pastor of many churches in this area. So Green Hunter is a very
You're exactly right. And Frida, we have it right on the marker. If you read the marker in front of our church, it says Green Hunter, Hunter. So Frida, that's a great catch. Everybody get that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I'm not going to ask somebody to read all of this, but we were talking about the corner of Capitol Avenue and King Street. Now, somebody tell us a little bit about that structure.
Kenny, that was before my time, so I'm sure that some of these others might know. We were in our present location when I came.
Yes, yes.
I remember.
Well, tell us a little bit now. 3D, y'all had a business and a home near this location, didn't you?
Mhm.
I can't hear you really well, Ken.
Okay,
Something going on with my internet. Can you hear me okay?
we can hear you great.
Anyway.
But anyway, this is the king, and I'm gonna show you a picture of it right here. But the important thing that we need to note from this screen is that the property was donated by the Jackson family, Miss Frances Jackson. We'll hear that name a little later. So here's kind of a picture from the Beetland to Barrow. Here's a
There you
picture
go.
of that location. Anybody remember that?
Yes, yes, I remember.
You remember that, Al?
Yes, the baptismal pool was in the floor. You know, now we go up and everything and go to the back up high. But back then it was in the floor and you had to pull like I don't know, plywood back, carpeted plywood back,
Carpet.
and then go down.
Carpet. Yeah.
I mean, carpeted plywood back,
Yeah.
and then you went down in the pool. And then like you came from the outside to go on the inside to get baptized. And then once you got baptized, you went back to the outside. And there was a little room to the side that you could go to kind of get changed and everything. But it was a very small room. But you spent most of your time outside to the right of where you're looking at.
Amen.
Mhm.
Good point, Al.
Even
Thank
in the
you.
cold?
Excuse me?
Even in the cold?
Yes, yes, it was baptismal. You didn't get cold.
Oh, okay.
I think she misunderstood. We baptized on the inside of the church, Miss Woody, not outside.
Right.
We
to
I
got
know, but he
baptized
said you go outside.
on the inside.
Yes, ma'am, you
And there
did.
was a little room. Yeah.
That's right. There was
Yeah.
a
But
little
I
room to
want
the
to
right.
comment. Yeah. I just remember the outside the yard, especially in the summertime when we had Bible school, if we had homecoming.
Mhm.
Al, you might remember this, how some of the old mothers of the church would lay out all that food out there, and Mr. John Burley would make that lemonade, you know,
In the
on
tin
those steps
tub,
out there. I remember these egg
in the
hunts.
tin tub.
That's yeah,
You
in the
remember
tin.
that? Well,
Here's
that's
some
what we called it.
here's some of the
Yes,
pastors of
yeah.
our church, and then we're going to see some names that actually became pastors of our new location, which was erected in 1970. And Reverend, I believe, someone correct me, the first pastor of the new location, who was that? Was that
Reverend
Paul A.
Anderson.
Anderson, or was there someone before him?
No, Reverend Anderson
He
Anderson.
was first.
first in the church we're in now.
Okay, gotcha. So it says Reverend Anderson, who served in the Second Winder Church. All right. And it says the last of these was the first pastor in the present location. So that would be Reverend Anderson, right?
He was the pastor when I joined.
Coach, when
When
did you join? That would have been in the 70s, Coach, in the early 70s.
Yeah, I was 70, 75 or 76, I think it was.
Okay. All right. And we show this picture here because the two seed beds of the church that y'all heard Sister Woody read earlier was the Mission Society and, test question, what was the other one? Sunday school. And those are really important to our church. So here's one of the first pictures of the Missionary Society. Can y'all name all those folks?
See, Sister Martha.
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
Sister Mark,
Martha
can y'all
right
see me
there.
point?
Martha,
Now, Sister Dorothy, you're in this picture somewhere, but I couldn't find you. It said you're in here.
To the right of Martha, two to the right is Louise Smith.
That's
That's
Louise
it.
right there.
That's, yeah,
that's Louise.
Okay.
Go back next to Martha. The one with the earrings on.
There you go.
I thought that was you.
There you go.
You probably thought that was me sitting on that lap down there on the front row.
No, I was looking at the lady with the hoop earrings.
Miss Anderson, Lois. Don't know the little girl.
That's
Yeah.
Vivian Jordan.
But
Next
Miss
to Miss
Larry,
Anderson.
Miss
Hey, Miss
Larry,
Larry, y'all.
president of it.
Is that Mother
Miss
Mary
Larry.
in the back?
Oh, you know who I just noticed Perez just pinged in. Is that his grandmama right there?
Yes, Miss Juanita.
Miss Juanita.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
And that is Eloise Burton, I think.
That's probably her.
Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
And Joanne Huff right next to Eloise.
Right there.
Uh-huh. And Miss Sims.
In the back, okay. I recognize her.
And that's Reverend that's Reverend, is it Maddox? Not Lester.
Reverend Maddox.
Yeah, I'm getting them confused with the segregationists.
Yeah.
We were segregated.
Not exactly a name to remember doing a Black History presentation, right?
Mhm.
All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, so here's some of the first deacons. Y'all saw this post. This is one of my favorite photos. We
Yeah.
see,
I remember this.
you remember those guys?
Yes, sir.
That's Reverend LaFardy Sims. That's
Right.
Reverend Maddox.
Maddox, Gray,
C.H. Gray.
Reverend
Pastor.
Anderson.
Reverend Anderson.
Wingfield,
Deacon Willie Wingfield.
James Carter.
Deacon
James
Carter. Hey, Sister Price, how are you?
and Price.
And that is Reverend Deacon Camp, right?
Yeah, Dickie Mayfield.
That's Camp. Camp.
Mhm.
Now, what's so striking about this? Can you see how much his son brother looks like him? Isn't that something?
Kenny, who was the
He do.
Wingfield?
Now, the Wingfield is the father of the Wingfield clan of all of those beautiful singers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was like, that doesn't look like Elwood.
It looks like Elwood.
It does.
I mean, but I was saying he couldn't have been this older back then.
That's brother Willie Wingfield. Is that right, Sister Martha?
That's right.
That's right. That's Martha and Daddy.
Yes.
Kenny, believe it or not, my daughter showed me those pictures, and and I named everybody. I got everybody. I didn't know Mr. Wingfield's name, but I knew who everybody else was.
Wow. Now, here's something we need to point out to the newcomers. Deacon James Carter and his wife, Sister Bertha Carter, they used to work for the Jackson family. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's because of that connection that we ended up where we are today.
Uh-huh.
So we owe that family a debt of gratitude.
That's right.
Now here's some, it looks like the deacons ministry lowered the standards a little bit because they let Robert Wembley and Slayton in. But this, now Deacon Slayton, this would have been, what would you say, 70, when did you join the deacons ministry, Deacon Slayton?
70, about 70, 73, 74, somewhere along there.
Uh-huh.
At the time of bell bottoms.
Wow. Deacon Slayton will always be a special person to me. His name, if you notice, his name is on the marker out in front of the church along with Reverend Price. They're the only two remaining originals from this picture. And so Deacon Slayton's always been the quiet one, but he certainly he stands among men of character. And so we thank Henry for his years of service to our church.
Amen.
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 Well, and so, speaking of lowering those standards a little bit, they let people like Albert and myself in and CJ, but now Deacon Wallace Hillman was a pillar, and Deacon Berry, I tell you, they were some of the pillars when I came along. Deacon Berry, when do you think this was?
It must have been somewhere around 1983, something like that.
Okay.
That been under Reverend Hazel?
This
No,
Reverend Anderson, I believe.
that's at Reverend Anderson.
Yeah.
No, not with CJ
No,
Johnson.
not with
Not
CJ.
with CJ Johnson.
That was under Reverend Hazel.
Yes.
It must
Not
be
for Brother Deacon CJ. He wouldn't have been under Reverend Anderson.
That would have been Reverend Hazel.
Yeah. Now Hazel came, his first year was 19, I think 88.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The first couple he married was Gary and Stephanie Johnson. And then I believe me and my wife were the second couple that they married, which would have been in 89.
That's
Now,
right.
You're right about that. I remember now.
You remember that, Coach? Now, so Deacon Albert, Deacon Lumpkin, and Deacon Benny Taylor, we all became deacons in 95. We joined Slayton, Berry, and Hillman, and the rest of the gang. So they let us come in to help them do a little lifting in 95.
Look at that mustache.
Look at that mustache. Now, the one person that's missing from a lot of our pictures, and I haven't figured this out yet, is our good friend, Brother Charles Colbert, Deacon Colbert.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As Coach has just indicated, Deacon Colbert was known for the phrase, absolutely. Along with his beautiful wife, Sarah Ann. Now, this represents a time in our church history, and we still have this somewhat now. Sometimes the husband and wife wouldn't be a member of the same church. Y'all remember that?
Uh-huh.
And so Sister Dorothy, Sister Sarah was a member of what church?
Appalachian Shows.
Okay. And of course Deacon Colbert was a member of our church.
That's right.
And it's because his mom played the piano. What was his mom's name?
Miss Sarah.
Miss Thelma Hayes.
Thelma Hayes. Let me
That's
say
right,
this
Thelma.
before I leave Charles Colbert. Charles Colbert was the first African-American Barrow County School Board member, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He paved the way, and then I think Wimberley came shortly thereafter. Now, this is a beautiful group of ladies, and tell me a little bit about this group.
Okay.
I know the one on the right down front.
I do too.
Yeah, I know her.
That looks like my mother.
Hey, I know that's your mother.
He said, look like.
It's kind of fuzzy, but it looks
Yes.
like her.
That is Sister Bell, 100%.
Uh-huh.
It's
It's the Missionary Society. The mission group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah,
church has always had a strong missions group, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think it goes back to that original history that was read. The Missionary Society and the Sunday School have always been the traditional seed beds, the strong
Yes.
roots of our church. And we don't ever need to forget that.
Mhm.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
this is Cheryl Brandon calling. I'm not a member of y'all's church, as you know, but just speaking to what you just said with respect to the mission of the church, I can attest to that firsthand because I only visited one time when I was looking to find a church pre-COVID, but then COVID hit, and of course I wasn't able to visit. But I will say that this is the only church that I visited that still reached out to me during the course and scope of the pandemic, and I'm not even a member,
Wow.
of this church. So I have to say that the statement that you made with respect to ministry and that being a characteristic of this church, is something that I know from firsthand experience. So just wanted to share that.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
Miss Cheryl, that was probably the most beautiful thing we probably would hear all night. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
Now, Miss Cheryl, are you the same Miss Cheryl that I met at the Dunkin' Donuts and I brought you a couple of the face masks?
Yes, sir. That's me.
Okay. Amen. She is now, she needs to be a member of our church because she follows us. She called and said, I want some face masks. And so she's a dedicated person. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. All right, well, let's rock and roll. So we're going to go back and point to the Beatland to Barrow again, because here's something I want you to understand. You know, of course, we have schools where we all go to school together, but in 1915 up until the 1970, we had separate schools, right?
Right.
Right.
Even though the desegregation was like in 55, Barrow County didn't actually fully constitute until, I think, Al, what year was it?
1970.
1970. But if you look here in the Beatland to Barrow, page 194, there were 12 black schools, and I'll just point to a couple of them. There was Glenwood, and there was one called Henderson Grove. And Glenwood, of course, you know, is across the street from our school, from our church rather. And Henderson Grove was towards the western part of Barrow County, over towards Gwinnett.
Henderson Grove.
Never heard of that? Yeah.
No.
Let me tell you a little bit about Henderson Grove in just a second, but this is Glenwood. Sister Dorothy provided, this is one of the early pictures of Glenwood School.
That's not the, that is the old, school, which was located on Capitol Avenue. Well, not Capitol, Glenwood Avenue.
Avenue.
Okay, not the current location school now, Sister Price?
No,
That's correct.
it was where the Boys and Girls Club was.
I got you.
Oh, no.
Okay. Got you. Well, let's talk a little bit. So that was Glenwood. This is Henderson Grove, and I point this out because Henderson Grove has a little bit of connections back to our church, and as you can see, it was named after a man named I think William Henderson. But here's a picture. Now, this school was located up in what would now be kind of like in the Auburn area. But as you look down through this list of names, there are two names that jumped out at me that made me go, wow. And those two names are John. These are school teachers, some of the first school teachers of Henderson Grove School back in the early 1900s. One is John T. Gray. Anybody know who John T. Gray is?
That's C.H. and Mary Rice's brother.
And James Albert's father.
Yes.
Yeah.
John T. Gray, which blew my mind that he was a school teacher at that school. And then right next to his name is Thelma Wingfield Hayes.
That's right. Your phone.
And so Sister Thelma was a school teacher at Henderson Grove back in the early 1900s. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
All right, let's keep moving. So I want to kind of spotlight one of the oldest African-American businesses in our community. It looks like in 1959, it says Gene Roberts of Athens moved to Winder. So I'm a little bit concerned about that name, but the business we're talking about is Eberhart and Son Mortuary.
And his name was Gene Eberhart, not Gene whatever that is.
Not Gene Roberts.
Right.
Yes.
Now, Roberts had a funeral home right above where his mother lived. It was up there.
Well, let me ask you this question, Ms. Price. Is it possible that history should reflect that Gene Eberhart bought the funeral home from Crawford Roberts?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what that should say then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in 1974, they moved to the current location, which is right across the street from our church.
Right.
And then in 1966, our former deacon and son of Gene Eberhard, Charlie Eberhard, partnered with his dad to become Eberhard and Son. Is that right?
That's correct.
And this is what it looks like today. And so we honor and we remember Deacon Charlie Eberhard.
Now Eberhard was also on Capitol before it moved down to King Street.
Yes, ma'am, up on the hill, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes.
What she say? The old film.
Also, keep in mind that while we're recognizing Brother Charlie, Charlie Eberhard is probably the first or the second longest serving city councilman in Winder history. Al, can you add any details to that?
I think it was the second. Sonny Morris was the longest, and then Charlie.
And Charlie. Thank you, Al.
Mhm.
Did
He's
somebody have a
longest
question
black.
earlier? Okay, thought I heard
Was
somebody
he the
ask a question.
first? Was he the first African American city councilman?
Al, is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's accurate.
Mhm.
Amen. So Brother Charlie was a first in many ways. He's
Yeah,
one of
when
the
they were drawing
longest.
the lines.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Kenny, the thing I remember most about Charlie is that he always talked about his hair and how some of us didn't have any hair, and his was still black and everything. And we used to get a big chuckle because he's
All
always
right, Big Bear.
how good his hair looked.
Well, he had a beautiful head of hair for sure.
He did. He did.
Amen.
Well, now this one is way back, so I'm going to need Miss Price to help me with this. But this is one of the oldest businesses owned by an African American group in our community. Tell us a little bit about it, Miss Price.
Okay, this barbershop was downtown on Athens Street, where this was taken. And the first chair is Mr. Mayfield Camp.
Oh.
Second chair is Guy Barnes, who is my husband Edward Price's grandfather. And then the third chair is Dago, and I can't remember what Dago's last name is.
Reed. Dago Reed.
Richardson.
Dago Reed.
Reed. Okay, Dago Reed. Okay, so but they were downtown, and they stayed downtown until 1973, and they moved to Holly Hill. But the shop actually stayed downtown even after 1973. And Mayfield had, in fact, Mr. Mayfield had 3 shops: two in Barrow County, 2 in Winder, and 1 in Statham. And after he died, then they decided to all come together and be in one place, and that's when they moved up to the Holly Hills shop, and that's where they all died. All of them dead now except for Edward.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. That's interesting.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this the shop? I can't remember who told me where they didn't do blacks, they just did white.
That's right.
Okay.
White.
When they started, that's all they did was white. Was white. Because of the growing, because of segregation.
Sister Three, will you share what you shared with me about the situation involving the barbers back in that time?
Yes, it wasn't unusual back in those times to have black barbers, you know, they cut white hair. And so that's who it was. And I will tell you that my dad, he would cut their hair by day and then would, cuss them out at night. He was not afraid of anybody, Ku Klux or anybody white. He would stand up to them. He was a man of great integrity. But there were businesses he did have a business, and he really inherited that. Miss Price, you got to help me how he inherited that shop
From,
from the grandfather of Reverend Price. But let me tell you, just because he cut white folk hair, just want y'all to know that he was not no Uncle Tom.
that's
And I
right.
will tell you, he had, matter of fact,
He was
he had
doing
to
his
least
job.
find a-
As
wait
a
a
matter,
minute.
as a matter
Yeah.
of fact, none of the guys that worked in that shop were Uncle Tom's. I
No,
mean, they stood up for what they for their beliefs.
it was
Right,
their business.
Yes, and they
right,
stood up for it too.
right.
That's what you're
But that
supposed
just
to do.
happened to be, yeah, but that just happened to be the trade that he learned and became a barber. And so, I mean, even back in the day, the Russells, where they would go to Washington, D.C., they would take their own personal barber, who was often a Black person who cut
Mm-hmm.
their hair. But he was the one who people came to when they wanted their problem solved. He would call white folk, he would go to their offices, and he stood up for many Black folks in Glenwood and,
Mm-hmm.
Barrow County. Now, they didn't have an NAACP in Barrow County at the time. And you have to remember, too, during this time, there were a lot of mentions that took place in Walton County and Oconee County. I know y'all probably heard of Moore's Ford that Oprah Winfrey featured one time,
Yes.
and they were afraid. But my dad was one that spoke up, who was never afraid.
Uh-huh.
Amen. Amen.
And down
I'm
there,
going to speak to that.
bridge as well.
If you all would, speaking of what Theresa just spoke of, I recall my uncle, my mother's dad's brother, Clifford Campbell, that lived right next to Mayfield Camp's store. And I recall my uncle saying that he and Mayfield and Mr. Jackson had to stand off a couple of guys, Klansmen, that came to Glenwood that wanted to tell them what to do. But
Uh-huh.
those men, I know Campbell was a serviceman from World War II. Didn't know the history of Mayfield and Mr. Jackson, but I think Mr. Jackson was a veteran also. But anyway, they with shotguns withstood the people that came to the community, which used to be, can't remember the name of the street, but it's right, the same street, Tabernacle and Miss Green and so forth.
It's
What
Elm
was it?
No,
Okay.
that was Glen Avenue. That
No,
was
that
Glen
was
Avenue.
Glen Avenue. That's right. That was Glen Avenue, which went straight down from Crawford Roberts' store. And anyway, they withstood those men that came to town to whoop their behind because they were able to defend themselves. Now I got that from my uncle, and they did it at Mayfield's store, and he lived right beside his store on one side, and my
Yes.
uncle lived on the other side.
Wow. That's good stuff, y'all. We're talking about church history, but church history is also Black history. We're talking about people that have paved the way, that have helped us to become the prominent church that we are today. We didn't just become White Oak overnight. This is through years, 100+ years of dedication and work and strong stewardship. And so that's what we honor here tonight on Talk Tuesday. Well, let's see what else we got on the next slide. So we kind of put these two pictures together. These two guys ended up working together for a number of years, right?
Yes. Edward worked in that barbershop for 58 years.
Wow. It's amazing. That's amazing.
Indeed.
Now, this is another barber that you may know, but he was also a deacon at the church. And who is this?
Deacon C.H. Gray.
C.H. Claude Gray.
Claude Gray.
And that family is very prominent in the history of our church. Of course, his sister was, what was the name of his sister?
Mary
Alice Gray. And we'll talk a little bit about that family in just a second. All right, now, who's this guy? Y'all know him?
Sonny Hurd.
I know Mr. Hurd.
White Oak favorite superintendent of Sunday school.
Amen.
Started the breakfast program.
That's
That's
right.
He did. He
That's
did.
right.
Hey, and Kenny, I was just talking, I was telling my cousin, I said,
I thought all families took their vacations with the church. I didn't realize it was just old folks, and if it hadn't been for Sonny Hurd, we wouldn't have gone anywhere. Sonny made sure that we were informed, educated, and had experiences.
That's right.
So when I was growing up, coming up, Coach, I thought all families took their vacation with the church. I didn't realize it was just us. We were selling Tupperware cans and everything, but Sonny made sure we went to Washington, D.C., Florida, just everywhere. Every year we had somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, the thing I liked best about Sonny was that you never had to wonder about what he was thinking about.
Amen.
He'd always tell you.
So she gonna say it.
The thing is that he tell you up front and straight, and he didn't pull any punches.
No,
and
he did.
One of the most honest men I've ever been around.
Amen.
And I'm grateful for what Sonny did. You know, he served as superintendent of our Sunday school. And as you said earlier, he started our breakfast program, and he'd do anything to make sure that those children had something to eat.
Amen.
Will y'all allow me to say this about Sonny also?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, everybody knows he hit the lottery, right? Was our millionaire, right?
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, those young folks, one of y'all went to every Hawks game, every circle, and like she mentioned, all those vacations, all of that. Sonny Hurd funded that. You know, Waldo had to pay very little. The kids had to pay very little. He funded that. So, you know, I just really appreciate his legacy.
You know, you don't have to be prominent in the history of our church to be an educator or be a great knowledge. Sonny didn't go to college, but very few people did more in the annals of the history of our church than Richard Sonny Hurd. He's a great man.
That's right.
The van we have right now, even though it needs a little paint on it, needs a little work, but we wouldn't have the current van we have had it not been for Richard Sonny Hurd saying, let's have a campaign and raise money to buy a new van.
That's right. That's right.
And that's just one of the things I remember him doing. He was a great person.
Yeah.
All right, let's rock and roll. We got a lot more, and I wanted to feature some of the Hillmen so y'all can remember what they looked like when they were younger. The whole family was at the church, right?
That's right.
Nikki, Tangela, and Ken, and of course, Wallace and Linda. And then, of course, we see John Holman and his wife and his 2 kids down at the bottom. So they're part of our church family and our history.
Mm-hmm.
And we just do it. We get, you know, look at where we came from. That's the old, and that's the new.
That's right.
That's right.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way.
Indeed.
Now, we've had people to help us get there. Now, this person right here, Curly Roberts, Sister Price, tell us a little bit about the importance of the Roberts family.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Miss Curly was the matriarch of that family, and her son Crawford owned what was that? He was a mortician, and he was also he also had a store and had a fish market. And when Miss Curley had a cafe, the cafe was right across the street from where the Crawford's smoke shop was. Where all the teenagers went on Sunday evening before we went to church. And she was just a staunch member of White Oak Spring, and she brought her children up in the church. You might some of you may not know that her son JD Roberts owned the house that was the parsonage, and he died. His wife stayed in there until she died, and then the church was deeded to. The house was deeded to the church.
So pause right there, Miss Price. The picture you see right there of that property was given to us by the Roberts family.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a part of our history. You need to know that. And it was started out as a parsonage. Yes, ma'am.
So is this the Roberts that's related to Miss Wimberly and Miss
Yes.
Gilgle Roberts in our church?
Yeah, that's Miss Wimberly's grandmother.
Yes.
Grandmother. Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yes. Very prominent family in the history of our church. Now, let me quickly show you how important this is, because this is an old tax map, but this was the original church property that was purchased with a $20 donation, I think from the Jackson family. That says 10. This is the property that was given to us by the Roberts family. Parcel number 8 is a piece that we were able to buy from that same Jackson family in the 1990s or so, I think, Deacon Berry.
Mm-hmm.
And then parcel number 6, we talked earlier about the Gray family. Parcel number 6, which is where it made it possible for us to add on our new education wing so we could have parking. This was donated to us by Mary Alice Gray in memory of her mother, Alice Elizabeth Gray.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Parcel number 5, we purchased from Yolanda Barksdale, and she acquired it from Mary Alice Gray as a gift.
Mhm.
What you see as number 7 is actually a street that City of Winder never finished. And so we were able to, a couple years ago, to go to them and acquire all of this property at no charge. They gave it to us.
Oh, good.
And then I think around 2013-14, we purchased 3 pieces of property, 1, 2, and 3, that had 2 rental houses that we now own, and we only have 1 rental house left, which is, I think it's number 3, number 2 burned down.
Mm-hmm.
And then parcel number 4 was purchased from Deacon Wimberly and myself in the 1990s. And so Wide Open now, through acquisition, through gifts, through generosity, now owns approximately 8 acres. We're one of the few churches that is not landlocked or locked into a situation where we can't grow. We can grow for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
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 All right,
Amen.
let's keep rolling. So here's an original souvenir. I'm thinking, ladies and gentlemen, this was the original souvenir booklet, Sister Dorothy, from the first service on April the 26th, 1970.
Yes.
And in fact, if you look at the marker that's on the side of the building that has Reverend Greenhunter's name spelled correctly, Theresa, I think the date on that marker is April the 26th of 1970.
Mhm.
All right, well, Myra, tell me a little bit about this group.
Well, that's my mother, myself, and my 2 daughters.
Yes, the only person you're missing is Brother Barney Bell. And as we said earlier, sometimes the husband and wife had different churches, right?
That's right.
And Brother Bell, for a while, what was the church he attended, Myra?
Well, he attended my grandmother's church at Fairfield. That's where he went to church.
Yeah, Fairfield
Statham.
State. Yes. Okay. All right, now this is the Watson family. I think Perez pinged in a few minutes ago. So Reverend Watson, look at you. You still look the same, sir.
No, I don't.
And just as handsome, just as handsome.
No, I don't, kid. Don't pivot me.
Sister Theresa, can you believe how fast these kids grow up?
Is that me?
Oh my goodness.
Is that me?
Yes, that's you, and that's
And
Brianna and Solomon.
Solomon. Hey,
And their
mama.
mother.
Hey, mama.
And
Oh,
that is Mother
that's
Camp.
sweet.
She
You know,
used
I
to.
thought I was Nikki Hillman. I was wondering why Nikki Hillman had them kids. I didn't know that.
No, that is you, Sister Theresa.
Oh, and look at that, baby. He looks just like my grandbaby. Oh, wow. And Brianna still bossing, Lord have mercy.
Yes, yes. It takes you back a little bit, doesn't it? And you know, we don't talk much about Sister Dorothy Nell Teasley, but she was just a chip off of the old Mary Ford Sims block, wasn't she?
That's right.
Beautiful voice.
She really
Could
was.
sing.
She was just like all the
Beautiful. And
Wingfields. She could read. She was a good singer, and she followed in the tracks like Sister Dorothy of Mary Ford Sims. Learned all that home ec stuff. Just one of the the greats of our church.
You know,
And
Kenny,
Kenny, it was also instrumental in making sure that our church had a strong presence in Relay for Life.
Yes, she
and
really
with
was.
Dorothy
Right.
was-
Yeah.
Very prominent GAE, Georgia Association of Teachers.
And the what do you call it? The NAACP? She was
Right.
in all of those organizations.
Kenny, Dorothy was a tremendous
MLK
educator also.
committee.
Yeah.
Dorothy was the president of the state teachers, and she had me to come and speak to the state teachers in Atlanta one year, and she was a tremendous woman, and she did a lot of great things that people never knew about.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Kenny,
Yes.
she was the first person or one of the first people to befriend me when I came to Georgia because we worked at Loganville Middle School together as well.
Wow. Did not know that, Mercer.
Yep.
Wow. That is great.
So
And of
so I
course-
loved her. So yes, she was
Yeah.
a blessing.
She was a hard worker, a definite pillar in our church. So we feature right now to the left of the picture, the first African-American female council person in Winder's history. And that's Jacoby Kilgore with her grandmother, who used to be one of my customers at the bank, Miss Annie. Miss Annie was a great lady.
Yeah,
And then to the right, we see this big, handsome guy. Dorothy, tell us a little bit about him.
What you need to know about him. He's also a member of White Oak, Pastor Moultrie.
Amen.
And that's my grandson at the bottom, Key Anthony.
I like
Amen.
that hat.
Oh, COVID you hadn't seen any hats yet.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, because she got some hats.
I can't wait. And of course, we featured Reverend Price. Reverend Price was a serviceman, and of course, he was started as a deacon, as a minister of our church. So we honor him. And the guy on the right, what can I say about Brother Linnell Johnson? He was a great guy, always had a smile on his face. What roles did he serve? Was he an usher, Deacon Beard? Do you know?
He was an usher.
Okay.
Yes.
And he was always there when you needed him.
Yes. Yes. Now, Al, I told you we would see this lady again, so here she is. Now, tell us a little bit about her. What's her name?
Elise Campbell Brown.
Yeah,
that's her. That's my mother, Elise Campbell Brown. She was a member of White Oak. Took us to White Oak, and we walked to White Oak from Atlanta Avenue every Sunday because she was very active in the church, and so she took us with her. And we had to climb Frog Alley Hill every Sunday to get to church. But it was easy going back because we spent the whole day at church. And then all you had to do was just fall down Frog Alley Hill to get back home, to get across the tracks, to get to Atlanta Avenue.
Amen.
But she really got us there.
Great lady.
Every Sunday.
Great lady. Her picture is up in the seniors classroom if y'all want to see that. And of course, we don't want to forget about Brother Billy Lay and Sister Maria Lay, the daughter of Mary Ford Sims and LaFar Sims.
Yeah.
Brother Billy is
Brother
Billy is doing everything he can to keep Sister Mary Ford Sims in peace and out of pain. So continue to keep Sister Mary Ford Sims and Brother Billy, who recently had a heart attack. Continue to keep him in your prayers.
Amen.
And we cut off Brother Rufus Huey's head right there. But y'all remember Brother Rufus?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You know, you never.
He was an usher also.
And joined the church. Brother Huey was a guy that I used to talk to every Sunday. Just a great, great person. He never told you about his ills and all that kind of stuff, but he wanted to make sure that he befriended you and that he said something good to you every Sunday.
Yes.
He did to me.
Yes. Coach, when I went to work for the bank in '88, Bank South, Brother Rufus Huey was the only black person I knew that worked in the bank. He had a job. Now, he wasn't a teller, but he actually worked for the bank. So I kind of had a great deal of respect for Brother Rufus.
Yeah. Good man.
All right, so this isn't old, and I feature this because there's one family that's just been such a supporter of our church, and this church directory features at the top one of the businesses that many of the African-American customers use to make their purchases, and that was the J.C. Poole Company proprietor, Claude Tuck. Mark has got him on mute. But even to this day, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, even to this day, David Tuck, who is a descendant of the Tuck family, supports us because of the rich history and heritage and connection that his family has had with many of the members of our church. And so we're very thankful for people like David Tuck. All right, and so we feature LaFar and Sister Mary Ford Sims, one of those pictures in their younger days, 2000, which was roughly, Sister Dorothy, about 20 years ago, 2021.
August the 6th, 2000.
And of course, Reverend Dr. LaFar Sims is one of the few African Americans to actually have a structure named after him, and this is the Sims Academy over off of Austin Road in Barrow County. And so we certainly are glad for that. And Sister Mary Ford Sims was at the unveiling of his bust, and can't remember what year that was, but it's been about what? How many years would you say, Coach?
It was about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe no more than 10, because I was at that dedication that day.
Okay.
It was 2015.
2015?
Mm-hmm.
So, Coach, you were right. You said about 6, 7 years ago. So that's about right, Coach.
Yeah.
Chandra, were you there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
January 31st.
January 31st. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And of course, there's another young man that's had a facility named after him, and we want to honor him. Not only was he a school teacher, but he was a deacon at our church, and he was a good friend of mine, Robert Wimberly. He served us well, and very soft-spoken, but when he spoke, people listened.
Yeah, we had something to say.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, so we remember deacon, brother, father, good friend, Robert F. Wimberly, and of course the Wimberly Center, which was the former Glenwood School, Wanda Barrow Middle School, which was purchased by the Wander Housing Authority in 2014, is named in honor of our good friend, Robert F. Wimberly. Now, we feature this guy. He's not a member of our church, but I believe he is the first African-American county commissioner. Coach, would that be right?
That's right. Johnny Smith served on the commission for a couple of terms, I believe, and he was the first one. So the shoulders that I stand on are his.
Yes.
And he did some good things for the Black community here.
And Coach Isaiah Berry is the second African-American to serve as a county commissioner. Coach, you've been serving how many years now?
I think this is my 16th year, Kenny.
16 years. Congratulations, and thank you for your years of service.
Thank you.
And now
Kenny,
yes.
I'm sorry. One note about Johnny Clee. I think he was the first president of NAACP in Barrow County.
Okay.
May
He
have
was
been.
one of the ones responsible for bringing it to Barrow County.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Good footnote there. Thank you, Sister Three. We couldn't figure out who it was, but I'm glad to know that it was Johnny C. Smith. And this is who wants to take a guess at who this is?
Oh, who is that?
Aaron.
Aaron. Oh, the
Aaron
first
Smith.
policeman. Black
Yeah.
policeman.
Now that's what I'm being told. Does everybody know that Aaron to be the first African-American policeman in Wanda?
No,
Is that
Mr.
correct?
Luke Watson. wasn't it Mr. Boo Watson, y'all?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
my
think three.
grandfather.
Yeah.
Okay,
Boo
hey,
Watson.
Reverend Watson, send us a picture. We want to feature him as well. If your grandfather was he was the first one, Reverend Watson?
Mama, I got it.
By my understanding, Mr. Boot Watson, my grandfather, and Mr. Hubbard.
Hubbard
And,
Hunter?
I forget the third guy.
Okay.
Stuart was a police.
Stuart Giles?
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Okay. You know, it was unusual to see African Americans in law enforcement back then, right?
Yep.
Douglas Smith was a police.
All right.
Who is Paul Teasley?
He was a policeman also.
That's right, Paul.
Some of those first ones wasn't allowed to carry guns.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
How you be a policeman and can't carry a gun?
Easy enough during that time.
They did it, and they kept
Amen.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this as much as I did.
I did.
Very informative.
Learned a lot.
It was good to go back in our history, and if we forget our history, then we're not doing justice to the next generation. So we need to always remember our history.
That's right.
Amen. Well, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Yes, yes.
Does anybody know? So why I heard y'all mention Frog Alley Hill? Why is it called that?
It's a frog. It was a frog.
To my understanding, there was a man, and I forget his real name, but he used to fall down that hill because he was intoxicated. So they called it Frog Alley Hill. Now I could be wrong about that, but that's what I recall being said as a youngster. Because I walked, we went up and down that hill.
Because he crawled like a frog.
Don't know about that.
Well, there you go.
Don't crawl.
Well, one thing I want to mention too, guys, I think I want to mention too that back in '74, if I recall correctly, there were no blacks other than Kenny mentioned earlier, Mr. Huey working in the bank in Barrow County. And I think it was I know it was a lawsuit that was filed against what was First Federal back in that day that caused banks to change their attitude. And then we began to have blacks working in the banks, not as custodians, but as tellers and administrators.
Yes.
I want to point that out. It took a lawsuit to do that, but it was because of discrimination that lawsuit came about back in 1974, 75.
Whatever it takes.
And my friend Rebecca was the first one hired at First Federal.
Amen.
That's right.
Amen.
Okay.
Rebecca,
one more.
Rebecca who, Sister Dorothy?
Rebecca Harris Williams.
Oh, okay, that Rebecca. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chandra. Was that you?
Yes, some clarification on integration in Barrow County.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, you may know, wasn't it in the late 60s when it occurred, and Bobby Crumsby and his sister Ann were the first ones to go to the integrated school? The two black ones from Glenwood to go.
They were the first two.
Okay. And what year was that, Sister Dorothy?
That was Chandra, that was before 1970.
Yeah, right.
I was in school.
I thought she said 75.
Yeah, it was before 1970 because my mom graduated in 64 and she was still in school and she chose not to go.
Right.
Wow. Wow. And we, of course, we know it took Georgia a full Brown Row, not Brown Row, but what was it? Board of Education, Brown versus Topeka Board of Education. That was that 55, 54, 55? And the state of Georgia didn't fully integrate until almost 15, 16 years later.
25 years, yeah.
Was it 25, Rita?
No, you're right, 15 years later. And I was gonna say back then they had a choice. That was doing when they had a choice, but full integration was forced upon Georgia 15 years later, 1970.
Absolutely. We did not go willingly. Absolutely.
No, they did not.
Well, this has been our history. Thank y'all so much. We will, next week, we're going to have a representative from the American Heart Association talk to us about sickle cell and some other diseases that are more prominent in people of color. So join us back next week for Talk Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Love everybody.
Have a blessed week.
Thank you.
See you for Bible study tomorrow. Don't forget Bible study.
Will do.
All right.
Bye. Love y'all.
Love you.
Love you too.